Welcome to La Vida Las Vegas podcast. We're two physical therapists living the life in Las Vegas. I'm Dr. Erica.
And I'm Dr. Joe. We created this podcast for two reasons. First, to connect the healthcare, wellness, and fitness communities in Las Vegas. And second, to highlight all the amazing people we've met along the way.
Thank you for listening, and remember to take care of yourself.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you want to introduce yourself.
My name's Alex, or full name?
Sure.
Alex Gazan. I'm 19, and I just moved to Las Vegas.
And what do you do?
I coach at Camp Rhino. I'm a personal trainer there, as well as I coach boot camp and CrossFit classes, and then I do nutrition coaching on the side.
Very cool. And what brought you to Vegas?
I got married, and his family lives here in Vegas, so he decided that living here would probably be best for his job, and I was open to moving, so we're here.
And where'd you move from?
Hood River, Oregon.
Okay. How would you describe that town?
A tourist town, but also a lot smaller than like a big city. Like there's one Walmart. If you want to go to Target or anything like that, you have to drive an hour to Portland. But it's known for like windsurfing, snowboarding, skiing, because you have Mount Hood and then the Hood River and then the Columbia. So lots of outdoor sports.
How's that compare to Vegas?
Vegas is hot.
Yeah.
And there's no water. But I do like that it's like there's a lot of opportunity, like things to do here, but without feeling like you're on top of people, like a city.
Well, what do you do to spend your time in Vegas?
I spend a lot of time exercising. My goal is to compete competitively in CrossFit. And then when I'm not exercising, I'm teaching other people how to exercise. When I can, I like to get outside, but right now it's really hot.
Did you grow up doing the water sports that you mentioned?
No, I did paddleboarding and stuff like that. Like I was on a team for that. But like windsurfing and kiting is really expensive if your family's not like already doing it. Because you like usually outgrow gear and like you have to like upcycle gear and stuff. And so financially it wasn't really a thing for me, especially because like lessons, like if your family doesn't do it, then you have to pay for consecutive lessons. But I did ski and like do the other outdoor sports.
So what's a paddleboarding team? I've never heard of actually a paddleboarding team.
So it's like racing. Like
Okay.
You have like more skinny paddle boards compared to the like stand up fat ones. And you go and like there will be like buoys. So like you do like buoy turns and turn around the buoy and essentially just a race, like how far you can finish or fast you finish.
Is that one a individual and relay or how does that work?
It was individual, but like we had like a group of kids that came down to the river every morning, and it was fun. Or kind of, it was cold and early, but it was fun.
Did you do that during like high school or like
I just did it in the summertime, like middle school, early high school.
Huh, didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to start a new league out here in Lake Mead or something. So what got you into CrossFit?
When I was in high school, I was super athletic, like played lacrosse and did like the lifting class at school. And my health teacher essentially kind of like gave me a blind date with the CrossFit box owner in Hood River and set me up at her gym. And after a couple classes, I got hooked really fast.
And how long were you there until you moved here? As far as CrossFit, yeah.
So I started CrossFit when I was 16. So I was there for like the first 2.5, 3 years of doing CrossFit.
Okay. And then how'd you move out here and then find Rhino?
So I moved out here and was essentially just working out at home because it was kind of still like things were just starting to open up again, kind of. And so I was just following programming in my garage gym. And then I took a book of resumes and like went to every CrossFit gym within like 15 miles of my house. And I walked into Camp Rhino and I met Kaylin, who's the PT director there, and they hired me on the spot. So that was really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. So you've been doing CrossFit for 3 years, and you just competed in a huge competition. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So I started when I was 16, and I just did like classes and stuff. And I found out there was like a teenage division because one of the coaches there was Reagan Huckabee, who's like, she's amazing. She's super good. And so she competed at the games, and I was like, wow, like that'd be amazing to do. And then once I found out there was a teen division, I was like, oh, I can do that. So I like trained really hard for that. And and like kind of just like decided that CrossFit was something I wanted to pursue. And so I just took it really seriously from like 6 months into doing it to now. So when like I aged out of the teen division, I didn't really have any expectations. The seasons kind of kept changing as far as the structure. But this year after the Open, I kind of just was like, well, quarterfinals, and then we'll see what happens. And I was really excited to make it.
So was that your first competition of that type?
Like of that caliber, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The West Coast Classic, the one that just occurred a little while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And looks like you did really well too. Everyone was
you.
really cheering you on, and it was really awesome to see you.
Yeah, thank you. I went in ranked like 25th out of the 30 women, so I kind of had no expectations or no clue as far as like how I would place or how I would stack up. So I kind of just went in like have fun and enjoy it, and I had a couple good workouts, and it was really fun.
What was your favorite event?
The push-pull, handstand push-ups, toes to bar, and then the rope pull and the sled push. It was fun.
Nice. And there was a time too. We saw you from the stands. Just you lost your hair tie. What happened there?
That workout was probably not one of my strengths. Like high volume chunks of movements, and then I lost my hair tie, and that was really fun. I straightened my hair like the Thursday before just for fun, and usually my hair sticks like without even a hair tie, so I was still navigating how to keep it up with it not being its typical curly self. But yeah, that event was hard.
You handled it like a rock star, I'll tell you that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what was it like behind the scenes and everything there? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of time where you have to wait, like hurry up and wait type stuff.
Oh yeah. That was like definitely a huge learning experience. Like, thankfully I've been around a lot of those athletes, like getting the opportunity to train with Reagan, growing up, and then here with Carrie and Bethany and Danielle. So like, at least like the one thing I had was like, I wasn't going in being like, oh my gosh, like I don't know anyone, and I'm this little like 19-year-old, and I just have to stay to my corner. So I felt confident like going up and like talking with other athletes. But it definitely was interesting. Like I'm not a serious, like when I compete, I don't like to be super serious because I get in my head. So like happy-go-lucky, and some athletes are not like that. So just seeing like a lot of people very serious and quiet, and after you warm up, you're waiting in the corrals for like 10 or more minutes. So you're going from really warmed up to like standing there looking at all these other girls that are just like head down, like not smiling, like some are, but like, and then you go out onto the floor and you're like, okay, I'm not really warm anymore and I'm really nervous. But it was a good learning experience for sure.
That's cool. It must be weird if you see people like Michael Phelps in it, where they're just listening to headphones and staring at the floor. Like that's how they get prepared.
Yeah.
That's interesting too, because you grew up doing a team sport, so lacrosse is a very team-based sport, and now as you compete in these competitions, it's I imagine as you get prepped for things, it's a little different. So, what are the things that you're thinking about when you're either in that corral or getting yourself hyped up or calm down, if you will?
Totally, yeah. I find that for myself as an athlete, anytime that I put pressure on myself is when I do the worst. So if I can go into an event knowing that regardless of what happens, like I still have family that's going to love me afterwards, and like my character isn't affected by my performance. And so I usually just try to think like, okay, what are my goals for the workout? Like, what is my plan? And then stick to that, because that's usually what works out in my favor.
I love that. That's good.
I know you've been training with some of the other athletes locally here. Do you feel like that greater helped to prepare you for that?
Oh yeah, totally. Kind of too, like for a competition like that, not knowing like how I could stack up against a lot of those really good women, and but just kind of having an idea of like, okay, if they go out super hot, like like that they are elite athletes, and like there are going to be some athletes that are like doubling your pace or whatever, but just like working out with Carrie and Bethany and Danielle and seeing like a new ceiling of what's possible kind of like prepared me going into that, knowing like, hey, there are some workouts where you can hang, like trust in yourself. And then there's some workouts where you do have to stay in your lane and know that like their pace might not be your pace yet, but like eventually like you can build up to that.
It's very cool to be at the gym and see the camaraderie of everyone in the group. It seems like everyone gets along and helps each other really well.
Totally. I was like so nervous to like go in there the first time. One of my coaches back in Oregon was like, hey, did you know that these people moved to Vegas? And she was implying like Justin and Carrie and those guys. And I was like, yeah, I've been seeing that. And she's like, well, you got to go. And I was like, I'm not going to go walk in there and be like, hey, I'm going to train with you. And she's like, no, you just have to go. And I didn't do that. But someone at Camp Rhino, my friend Brent, he got me connected with them. And so it was a lot more of a smooth introduction. And I was super nervous still, but Carrie was like the sweetest and most like inviting, like, hey, like come on in, and totally like personal and not just like not just CrossFit, you know. It was like very friendly and inviting, so that's been super cool.
And Carrie is the nicest person, and I feel it's totally genuine. Like just every time you ever see her, she's like saying hey to everyone, and she's awesome. Yeah,
so it was like very calming to go in there and feel like that from the start. And so now when I go train with them, it feels just like very natural and not so, oh my gosh, like I'm intruding and like it's weird. But yeah, very sweet. All of them, Bethany too, and Danielle, they're all super nice.
So coming from your sport background into this CrossFit realm, how has that training maybe changed, or things that you look at differently in that aspect?
Yeah. So doing lacrosse growing up, like I feel like it was just one thing. Like it was a lot of skill work with your lacrosse stick and strategizing as a team and like plays. And I definitely do love a team atmosphere. And so like I am looking forward to eventually like working with a coach and being a part of like something bigger than myself, because I find that's when I perform my best, when other people are behind me. But I wasn't like super concerned about training hours a day when I did lacrosse. Like it was like go to practice and that's it. But now like as an individual CrossFit competitor, like it's all on you. If you do bad or good in an event, you don't have anyone to fall back on or blame. So yeah, it's definitely more like when I'm training, it's like, do you want it or do you not? And so that's like sometimes good and sometimes not.
So I'm pretty impressed with your level of commitment, especially for being younger. Because I can tell you when I was 19, I was not very committed to many things. So have you always had that, like going through lacrosse and the team sport atmosphere? Like have you always been pretty disciplined and like this is what I'm doing and this is what I want to excel at? Or did that bring that out of you?
I'd say so. Like I came kind of from like a broken household, like a lot of different family events, and my parents struggled with different substance abuse problems. And so I feel like athletics was like my one category where I had all the control. Like, of course, like financially and all that, I didn't, but like at practice or in the gym, like I could control my outcome. And I wanted to make something better of myself than what I had like seen growing up. And so like I just kind of like became disciplined in it, and I'm super competitive. Like just growing up in team sports, that made me competitive. So once I found out CrossFit was competitive, it was pretty easy to become committed to it.
Are there other things in your life besides CrossFit that you're competitive at?
Everything.
Like what?
I don't know, like if Jake and I are playing a game, like I'm really competitive, or I don't like do any other competitive sports outside of this, but if I'm playing mini golf with friends, like I want to win.
And board games?
Oh yes, board games too. I'm a good sport. I won't like flip tables or anything, but I want to win.
What are some of your favorite board games?
I like Scrabble. That's a big one. I like games where you have to like strategize. Like games like Sorry and like Uno are fun, but there's no skill or thinking to it. So I like games where you have to think a little more. There's a game called Scattergories where you like roll a dice with letters on it, and there's a list of like categories, and you have to like write a word with that letter on each one. I really like that game because it's timed.
Oh, that's cool.
So it'll be like a letter A, and then you have like a name, a food, a street, like things like that, and you have to write it.
And the ones you mentioned, those are all older games too. I'd say 20 years or so, at
Yeah.
least for some of those. Have you played any of the newer board games? Like I feel like 10-ish, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit less. There was like this explosion of all these new board games. Like Pandemic came out, and then like a bunch of other games where it's like really different.
I don't know if I've played those. I guess I'd need like an example.
How about Catan? Have you ever heard of that game
I
before?
have not, but I'm open to it.
That requires some strategy. I feel like if you like those types of games. Well, does it? It sounds like you have the words. You like word games.
I do like word games.
But this one's not included in that. But if it's strategy, you like strategy.
Yeah.
Then you probably like this one.
Yeah, I feel like that's the new board games that have been coming out. I feel like they're very heavy on the strategy part. It's almost like the in-depth part of like if you're playing a video game or something like that, but they have it in a board game form. So there's like a lot of levels of planning for some of these. It's gotten pretty interesting.
I like funny games too, like Cards Against Humanity or like Apples to Apples. Those are funny.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever played Exploding Kittens?
Yes.
That's a good game.
I still don't know how to describe that game to anyone, but it's really fun.
Yeah, I think the slogan is if you like explosions and cats,
Yeah.
then you'll be a fan of that game. I totally
Yeah.
agree. So when you're not playing board games or doing CrossFit, what are you doing outside of that, outside of the coaching?
So outside of work, I like to cook. I grew up working at a kitchen and like managed a little organic deli, and so I do like to cook. I love to dance. I haven't really got back into it since moving to Vegas, but like hip hop, like going to classes, like I think that's super fun. I don't know. There's not like I don't have a lot of hobbies, but I like to be social. I like to hang out with people or go paddleboard or go swim or like actively do things with people.
I love that. What about cooking recently? And any fun recipes or things that you've discovered or learned?
Nothing technical, like things that I've learned. My sister and I made chocolate chip oatmeal cookies 2 days ago, but I'll just kind of make whatever.
Yeah, it's cooking is like something else that's multiple layers. It's like you could just cook just enough to get by, or you can really get fancy with some stuff. And I feel just like with the board games, the last like 10 years or so, all these new like cooking apparatuses have come out that make things way different and way better. Like, have you ever used an air fryer before?
I love the air fryer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing's pretty awesome. And you
Yeah.
can get like the fry attachment. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've tried that yet.
I haven't. I don't actually have like the conventional air fryer. I have this like toaster oven that doubles as an air fryer, so it's essentially just like a convection oven. But I want to get like the just straight up air fryer because I feel like it would work a little better.
Definitely recommend it, especially with those chicken strips that they have at Costco that taste very similar to the Chick-fil-A ones. Have you had those yet?
I have
In
not.
the green bag?
All right.
Yeah, we talked to people that work there, and they said that they can like hardly keep those things in stock for a little bit.
Are they just regular like chicken strips that you put in the air fryer?
Yes, but putting them in the air fryer makes them even more amazing. And they do taste very similar to Chick-fil-A's if you've ever had Chick-fil-A before.
I haven't had
No?
Chick-fil-A. They don't. Maybe there's one in Oregon. I don't know. It might maybe in Portland, but like where I'm from in Hood River, there's not a Chick-fil-A.
They're just putting a few more in Vegas too, so you have opportunity if you ever drive by one. Just not on a Sunday. Just remember that.
Yes, closed on Sundays.
And Vegas is doing a really good job too of collecting a bunch of like older restaurants. There's a few out here that I've seen that I thought were extinct, and I haven't seen them other places. But then Vegas will have one, and they're also like pulling in ones that I did not think would be a chain, like the Hattie B's Hot Chicken that's in Cosmo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that one serves some of the hottest chicken if you've ever had hot chicken before.
I
But it's like a
haven't.
satellite location out here now.
I think I've seen it, like walking through there, but I've never had it.
It's probably the spiciest thing that I've eaten.
Oh, I don't like spicy.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. It takes you by surprise. Like when you just see it, it's just like a piece of chicken sitting there. You're like, oh, it's not gonna be so bad. And then you eat it, and like 3 minutes later, you're like almost hallucinating. It's crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't seem enjoyable to me.
Now, with your nutrition coaching, what are the things that, or common things that you tell people when you're working with clients, or things that you think people struggle with in terms of nutrition?
I feel like the biggest thing that I struggle with clients is kind of remolding their brains, because between social media and magazines and this and that, like there's so many fad diets and then so many trends and so many different ideologies when it comes to what is healthy eating and like how do you achieve your goals. And so obviously I think everyone's nutrition is different, so like you kind of have to approach it that way, but like encouraging people that you don't have to eat 1,000 calories a day to like lose weight, or that carbs are not going to make you gain 50 pounds. Like that's been probably the hardest thing, is just like trying to encourage people to like ditch some of their prior beliefs. So I usually just try to go about it in like hey, like we're in this for the long run. If you can manage to eat in a way that's like sustainable, where you have a cookie, you have ice cream here and there, but like you just become like habitual in how you eat. Like, hey, I haven't had vegetables today and I want vegetables. Like you start to create those habits, and like protein becomes easy. Like, hey, like I'm going to add some egg whites so I make sure I hit my protein. And just, I feel like at this point, like the little things are what make the biggest difference, as opposed to going all or nothing. Like I'm not going to eat any carbs and I'm going keto, and then you have a donut and you're no longer in ketosis and it's going to take you a while to get back to it. Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, like I'm barely going to have any fat, and then all of a sudden your thyroid is like having issues, and just things like that.
Mm.
Are most of your clients CrossFitters then?
I've had like kind of the whole spectrum. I've had people that aren't actually in the CrossFit world. I have a few people that do boot camp, a few people that are just like concerned about their general health and wellness that aren't necessarily athletes. Yeah, so a little bit of everything, the whole spectrum.
Do you notice a difference of the person's prior level of knowledge too, based on what they were doing before? We just tend to notice, at least in our practice, that when CrossFitters come in compared to an average person that does not work out or is not as active, their level of understanding is actually a lot higher of things from other people. Like they know what certain muscles are that a lot of people wouldn't normally know. They have a pretty good understanding of like movement and.
Yeah. I think like different categories too, like like where they're coming from, what athletic background, but also age, I think is one, like what era they were a part of and what diet was very popular in that era. Like I was working with one client who she ate so healthy, like to the, like everything that she ate was like so clean and like organic and great, but she was eating like less than 1,000 calories. And it was just because she was like, in her brain, like I have to eat this to stay at the leanness that I want. Or like I'll have people that are a little more like concerned about carbs, and like that's huge. Like I feel like that's been such an era for so long that carbs are bad. And yeah, so I guess it's different depending on who it is, but I haven't really thought about it much. Like I just assess each person when they come.
Do you have any clients that are like younger, maybe like early 20s, where they kind of grew up with more of the social media education of things instead of actually following some of the previous diet plans like Atkins?
Yeah, not currently. I had a couple high schoolers at one point that wanted to perform better. I think the hard thing too is like people don't understand the commitment of nutrition coaching, and so they think they want it, and then they sign up, and then they aren't willing to, because it does take time. It's not like I can do it for them. Like I give them the tools. So I find that like most younger people that I've worked with, it works for a couple weeks and then they get busy going to school and this and that, and which is totally fine. But yeah, with the younger people that I've worked with, I feel like it was more just teaching them to eat more, like because like it was women that I was working with, and younger ladies, and at that age, I remember too, in middle school and high school, you wanted to be skinny. You didn't want to look strong, or you didn't want to look bulky. You wanted to be skinny, and the easy way to do that is to make sure you're not eating a ton. So that was difficult, but like it's a good challenge and exciting to see people change their mindset.
That's one thing I think CrossFit's done an excellent job of too, is changing people's idea of what body types can be, especially for women. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you looked at a lot of like supermodels, they call them supermodels, but now if you look at them, they look like malnourished, from like the 90s or something, like people walking on stage. But then as CrossFit came in, I think that they showed that you could still be like strong, but be like fit looking, and it's healthy, and it doesn't look like overly muscular or anything like that. I think they've done an excellent job of pushing the positive body image, especially for women. Yeah,
it helped me a ton. Like also just going from a mindset of like, yeah, you can look great doing CrossFit, but the focus was not so much on your aesthetics, but like on your performance. So you could maybe be up 5 pounds, but if your performance is skyrocketing and you're PRing lifts and your gymnastics is better, then you don't really care. Whereas like if you're just in a conventional like Globo gym or doing stuff for aesthetics, like your whole focus is on what you look like, which can change at the drop of the hat. So it's helped me a ton.
That's an excellent point too, is to follow performance, and a lot of other metrics track with it. So instead of like really geeking out exactly on like, oh, my blood pressure was this one day and it was this one day, if you just do the right things and get better and fitter overall, all those other things tend to get dragged with it. Like, you know, your appearance, mental health, like a lot of things can be improved by that.
Totally.
You feel the same thing with your experience as far as coaching people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like myself included, like when I focused on bigger picture things is when, like you said, everything follows suit, like sleeping good and drinking water and trying to eliminate stress and like have the cookie if you want it and then move on. Like those things are what have kept the ball rolling as far as progress is. Yeah. Anytime that I've tried to like strictly follow something is when I just feel like I spend more time stressing than I do anything else.
And you mentioned that you recently finished your 2-year degree at school.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that in?
Just Associates of Science. So I'm like, I started it in the hopes of like getting a degree in kinesiology or nutrition. But I decided to take a break because I have like a lot of certs outside of like accredited college. So I have like the Working Against Gravity nutrition cert, and then like the CrossFit level 1 and like a few other things that I just feel like for the time being is all I need for now. And then once I'm done, like essentially focusing on myself as an athlete, then I can go back and start that process.
So when you first started CrossFit, I guess I'm saying in this way because when I was in high school, I didn't touch a barbell at all. So you have this, you have this knowledge in general of around strength and conditioning. Did you have that growing up prior to doing that? Like you had kind of a general idea of what nutrition was or like what that meant? Like,
so my whole like health world journey started when I was 14 and all my friends went vegan. Like that was the trend of the summer and the YouTubers went vegan, and so they all went vegan, and I was like, I'm gonna too, because all the cool people are doing it. And I did it for like a day, and then I went to my dad's house, and he was like, that's BS, like here's your steak, like that's what we're having for dinner. And because he was super into like bodybuilding at the time and like very large man. And so I ate my steak, and but that one day that I was vegan, I was like looking at food labels because I had to check. And that made me super curious of like, oh, like why is this in there? Like what's this? What's that? And so that kind of like started a little fire in me to like learn more about nutrition. And then I started going to the gym with my dad, and I didn't do anything that special. I did like leg day every day, and I didn't want to get bulky, and I still had that mentality. But that kind of like got me familiar with the gym and my mind open to nutrition. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, you have to take 2 PE credits, and the first year was just like general freshman PE. And then when you're a sophomore, you have the choice between it's like lifetime fitness or like a lifting class that was called athletic development. And so I started taking that class where essentially you bench press, back squat, and power clean. And I'll put that in quotation marks because it was atrocious power cleans taught by a football coach. But
so that hasn't changed.
Yeah, it hasn't changed.
Is that like the chest up, butt back approach?
Like jump
jam your back together? Yep.
Yep, totally. But I kind of realized I was strong, and then that class was competitive. There was a wall with a board, and if you like had the best pound for pound percentage or you had the heaviest lift, then you were on the board. And so I was kind of like, screw being bulky, I don't care. Like I want to get on the board, and that kind of got me. That got me into lifting more, and so it kind of gave me a good intro before I started CrossFit of at least like squatting a little bit and having weight load on myself. But my form was not good.
I think you also brought up something too I've commonly heard. Like people will say, oh, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get too bulky. So that tells me two things. It tells me, one, they don't know anything about,
Totally.
like they've probably not been working out ever.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even friends with people that do. And then two, it's kind of like an excuse for things. But I try and tell people, like, if that was that easy, like everybody at the gym would be huge.
Yeah.
Because there are people that go all the time and either they don't eat enough for it or they don't lift heavy enough. Like it's not as easy as you think.
Now when people say it, I get kind of offended. Like, you don't like? It's okay. Like,
yeah. It's like, well, just maybe make a different decision. You know, come hang out with me for a day and we'll see if we can make it different.
Totally.
So you still work out with your dad now these days? Some bodybuilding?
He kind of fell off the bandwagon a little bit. He became a truck driver for a bit and just didn't have the time or the energy. I mean, actually, that's lame. You can make the time if you want it, but he didn't make that time. And so after like a little shoulder thing and that, he like fell off. But his goal this year is to hopefully get back into it. But he's one of those lucky people that still looks like he lifts even though he doesn't. But yeah, I would love to work out with him once he gets back into it.
Has he done a CrossFit workout with you?
Oh, he won't. So when I first started it, as a joke, he was like, I'm going to have to disown you because now you're working out with the gym monkeys that get in my way. Because the gym he attended was like a hybrid between like a lifting gym and a CrossFit gym. And he was like, yeah, I'd be doing something and they'd come and use my machine the way it wasn't supposed to be used. And anyway, but I made him watch the CrossFit like documentaries that they have on Netflix, and after he watched those he was like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool, like, and now he's super into it. My first competition that he watched was West Coast Classic.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
And so,
was he here?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So having him there for that was really special. I don't think I'd be able to convince him to do one because I think he thinks he'll break himself, but it was cool to have him there.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm glad he was able to make it out for that.
Mm-hmm.
It is funny I think a lot of people before they do CrossFit, they start in the traditional gym atmosphere where it's like the bro sessions, back by, chest tries, skip leg day, any excuse that you can, type thing. You even if you have to write your own out of order sign and put it on the leg machines to make sure that you can't use those for the day. But they also have like the etiquette of like sharing equipment because they want everyone to play nice in the big gyms where you have to work out in the chains of equipment. And then when you come to CrossFit gyms, it's just like everyone kind of has their own stuff, or you intentionally are sharing. So that was very different. I remember coming from the previous atmosphere.
Yeah, totally.
I love that he called it gym monkeys. That's great.
Well, like, honestly, if you don't know or if you're not in that world and you see someone doing butterfly or kipping pull-ups that maybe aren't that good at them, or even if they are, you're kind of like, what's the point of that? Because they don't understand the whole high intensity and different time domains, and that their goal might not be just to get stronger pull-ups. They're like doing something else. Or like I'll have family that will see certain movements. Like my dad posted like a live feed of the GHD event, and my family was like, why did you do that, honey? Like, are you okay? Or like snatches. Like they're like, you're going to be careful. Like you're going to hurt yourself. And yeah.
You're like, thanks for that general advice.
Yeah.
For anything.
Yeah, seriously.
So how did you and your husband meet?
We met at the CrossFit gym. I remember I was going to go to the 6:30 class, and I walked in and he was shirtless and really hot. And we eventually, like, over the course of a few weeks, like, started talking and doing accessory work and stuff after class.
Very cool. And you guys have an awesome van. That's actually, I think, how you met, right? Is Erica noticed your van and was asking questions about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has had that since I met him. Or he had a different one and, like, traded, but he has always been super into, like, the Go SD vans and loves the idea of, like, van life and, like, traveling in it. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool van.
What's a Go SD for people that don't understand?
Well, so it's, like, I'm not very savvy, actually. Jake should probably answer these. It's, like, a type of van where, like, they don't make them anymore, like, this model, so, like, the value just kind of increases, like people want them. An adventure van, you can like deck it out to have a bed and a kitchen and a thing similar to like the nowadays Sprinter van, but more like retro and cooler.
Very cool. What's Jake do?
He does fire prevention and like weed abatement in California. So they go and do fire lines and whack weeds in the hot summer sun.
Sounds like a pretty difficult job.
Yeah, he'll like send me videos like wringing out his shirt of like sweat and the hills that they climb with their weed whackers and all the equipment that they use. It looks hard. I don't think I could handle it.
You guys don't have any kind of lawn or anything at home here, right? So all the weed whacking he has to do is just in California. He doesn't have to come home and do it again too.
There's no grass here.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
too hot.
Sure. Most people have like the fake grass in their backyard, like the
turf.
putting green golf type
Yeah.
grass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely a pretty difficult job. Have you ever gone out there and tried to do that with them?
Nope. I've like gone out there and visited him after his shifts or whatever. But
Just help them with some meal prep or something?
yeah, I'll cook for him.
Okay.
That will be my assistance.
Any pets?
Yeah, we have a pit bull. We think he's mixed with like Mastiff or something because he's huge. He's like 140, 150 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
It's a huge dog.
Yes, but he's such a baby. It's adorable. So he's like this big pit bull. He probably looks very intimidating, but he like all he wants is attention. And yeah, he's my first like real dog that's been like my dog and not like just a family dog.
Oh.
So that's been really fun.
How'd you find the dog?
Jake's parents actually had him, so they had 4 big dogs. They had Duke, which is our dog now, another smaller pit bull, and then 2 Rottweilers. And just like I felt like with 4 big dogs, it's hard to give each individual dog the amount of attention they need. So we took Duke because I wanted a dog, so I figured instead of going and getting one, I would just snag him. And it was really helpful when I moved here, and like I didn't know a lot of people. He kept me a lot of company.
I feel like too, every time I've met someone that has a dog named Duke, it's always this massive dog that just like eats cow legs right off the cow. I mean, it's always this huge thing.
I always joke if his name wasn't Duke, it'd be like Princess or something. He's such a baby.
I love that. What's something you've learned and you wish you knew sooner?
There's a lot of things I learned and I wish I knew sooner. One would just be like, from an athletic standpoint, is listening to my body and like knowing that skipping a workout for one day is going to be a lot better than doing it and then having to skip 3 weeks of workouts. And I still struggle with that sometimes because you want to do everything all the time. From a not athletic standpoint, it would be not caring what other people think. Because like being young, being 19, coming out of high school, like you care for whatever reason, or at least I did. And looking back, it was just such a waste of time because like I don't talk to half the people I went to school with anymore. Like, yeah, so that would be my outside of athleticism answer.
And what's something that you've been working on, whether it's professionally, personally, physically, or mentally, that you're excited about?
Athletically, like working towards becoming a better athlete, I feel really excited about the direction it's heading. And this year was like a really good reinforcement that it's paying off and that I feel like I do have the potential to reach the games, which is my goal. Personally, like just staying really dedicated to like my family life and focusing on like my faith and things like that. And I feel good about where my energy is being put.
I love that. And what's something in your like daily life or just in general that you wish more people knew about?
About me? Or
that or just in general? Let's say something about yourself and then something about you wish more people knew, like this was the best cookie you've ever had or something, you know? It's like something like that.
Yeah, okay. About myself, I feel like I just wish like more people, not necessarily about myself, but like people in general, took the time to like think that there's a lot more that could go on behind closed doors. I think people are very quick to assume they know someone. And from my experience with other people and myself, like there's a lot more to people than we often think. And then just like a random thing I wish more people knew. I wish more people knew like how much food you can eat and like enjoy it without like having problems.
I love it.
So as far as your long-term goals, are you trying to pursue more of that nutrition route? I think you said that you were going to maybe step back from that for a little bit, but is that what you're looking at maybe several years from now?
I just kind of felt like the schooling as far as like going back to college right now wasn't necessary because I have clients and I have credentials like from like specific nutrition courses, and so like I'm not going to necessarily like actively be pushing for it because I'm going to focus on myself more as an athlete, but like definitely welcome nutrition clients as they come and do that.
And how do you find your clients?
Kind of word of mouth. Occasionally, like if I meet someone, oftentimes like they'll be like, how do you look the way you do, or like how are you fit? And that's usually a good segue into nutrition. Or at the gym sometimes like people are looking for that, or old family friends, like people that my parents know, things like that.
Do you do it remote or just in town?
Both. Remote works and is great, but that requires a lot more discipline on the client's end, and like honesty, because I can't see them.
And do you have them track on a software or write it down, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so they can have a choice of what software they prefer. MyFitnessPal is nice because I can see what they log if they share that with me. But they'll log macros however they see fit, and then they just kind of have to keep up with me if they're following their macros, how many days they're missing it, other factors that could influence their week, and things like that.
Have you ever had the difficult decision of having to like fire a client in a sense?
Oh, let go of one? I've never done it, because if they want to pay me to not do anything, but I've definitely like had conversations with people like that I don't want to let them down as a coach, but I personally can't do anything beyond what I've done unless they start putting their work into it. So I've like definitely been honest with people like, hey, you might not want to pay me until you're ready to like commit to it. But I've never actually said like, hey, I can't work with you, because most people that I've worked with are really sweet. So it's easy to like talk to them in a nicer way.
Mm.
For sure.
And what's something you want to leave listeners with?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one. Yeah, just like follow your heart with what you want to do in your life, and yeah.
I love that. And how can people find you?
Social media works great. I have a phone and email. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
We'll put your stuff in the show notes.
Okay,
so you don't
cool.
have to worry about it saying it. Well, we really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Eric and I think that you're awesome. We really are impressed with you, especially like your age, like how together you have it, and like how you approach things. I think it's awesome. It gives us like, you know,
hope for the
future
future generation. Yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank you for listening to La Vida Las Vegas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the time with our guests as much as we did. It would help us out so much if you could share, subscribe, or review our podcast, or any combination of the three. Thanks again, and remember to take care of yourself.